Florida's proposed property tax amendment sounds simple. A bigger homestead exemption, more savings for homeowners, and possibly even a path toward reducing property taxes even more in the future. But when you actually look at the wording, the fine print matters a lot. Because a few words can change everything. Words like may, shall, non-school levies, special assessments, resident, inflation, and general law. So before anyone thinks their Florida property tax bill is just going away, let's slow down and look at this, what could actually mean for homeowners, for buyers, and especially for people thinking about moving to Florida. And if you're considering Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Bradenton, or the surrounding Gulf Coast area, this is exactly the kind of information you need before you buy. I'm George Latos with Zackos Realty and Design, and I help people move smarter, not just faster. Before we get into the fine print, please take a second to subscribe to my channel. I cover the real cost of living, buying, selling, and relocating to Florida, especially here in Lakewood Ranch and in the Sarasota Manatee area. My goal is to help you understand the things that do not always show up in the headlines, but absolutely affect your money and your lifestyle. Now let's get into the fine print. The headline most people are going to hear is this: Florida homeowners could eventually receive a $250,000 homestead exemption. That sounds massive, and for some homeowners, it could be very meaningful. But here is the first thing buyers need to understand. This does not mean your entire property tax bill disappears. The larger exemption applies to non-school portion of the property tax bill. That means school taxes can still remain. And in Florida, your tax bill is not only just one simple number. You may have county taxes, city or municipal taxes, school taxes, special district, CDD taxes, bond payments, maintenance assessments, and other charges that appear on the same tax bill. So when someone says Florida is getting a $250,000 tax exemption, do not automatically hear my whole tax bill is going away. This is not the full story. The better way to understand this is part of your tax bill may be reduced, but others still may remain. And that is especially important in communities like Lakewood Ranch, where many neighborhoods have CDD fees, community development district charges, bond payments, or special assessments. Those items can be a very real cost of ownership. So if you're buying a home in Florida, just don't ask, what is the property tax? Ask, what is included in that tax bill? Because the fine print matters. Now here's another part that's not getting enough attention: the inflation adjustment. This exemption would eventually rise to $250,000, but it is not intended to stay frozen at that number forever. After that, the exemption would adjust annually for inflation. That means the exemption could grow over time as the cost of living rises. For homeowners, that could be meaningful because it helps protect the value of the exemption in future years. But it's also important to understand what it does not mean. It does not mean that your entire tax bill is frozen. It does not mean that your total cost of ownership cannot go up. And it does not mean that every charge on your tax bill disappears. Your property tax can still be affected by school taxes, local millage rates, special assessments, CDDs, bonds, and other costs. So yes, the inflation adjustment is a real benefit. But it's not the same thing as saying your full tax bill is locked in forever. And that's a very important distinction. The next big point is the word may. It is one of the most important words in legal and government language. When the text says a governing body may do something, that actually means it has the permission to do it. It does not mean it has to do it. And that's very different from the word shall. In plain English, may usually means optional and shall usually means required. And that one word can be the difference between a guaranteed benefit and a political decision. So if the language says a county, city, or governing body may take certain action, does not mean that every local government will automatically do it. It means that they may be allowed to do it, and that is the important distinction. And for homeowners, buyers, and people relocating to Florida, that distinction could matter. Because Florida is not just one tax bill and one government decision. You have state, counties, municipalities, school districts, and special districts, and they do not all work the same way. The next major point is the phrase special assessments. This is another area where people can get very confused. A homeowner may look at a tax bill and say, "That is my property tax." But some charges on that bill may not be reduced by a homestead exemption. Special assessments, CDD fees, bond payments, and other charges can still be a part of the cost of owning the home. And this is where Florida buyers really need to pay attention. In some communities, especially the newer master plan communities, the CDD or special assessment portion of that bill can be very significant. So even if the taxable value is reduced for part of the tax bill, the buyer still needs to look at the entire annual obligation. That includes property taxes, school taxes, CDD fees, HOA fees and insurance, and any other special assessments. Because the headline may sound simple, but the real cost of ownership is in the details. The next point is timing. And this one could be very important for people moving to Florida from New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois, or anywhere else. The proposal appears to treat current Florida residents differently from people who move here later. That means the date you become a Florida resident could matter a lot. If you're already a Florida resident by the required deadline, you may be in a very different position than someone who moves here after that deadline. So for relocation buyers, this is not just a tax story, this may be becoming a timing story. And that's why people thinking about moving to Florida should pay very close attention now. Because depending on how the final rules are written and implemented, waiting could affect when you actually qualify for the larger benefit. Now let's talk about the biggest headline of all, the idea of full elimination. Some people may hear this proposal and think Florida property taxes are being completely removed, but that is not exactly what appears to be happening immediately. The $250,000 exemption is the clearer and more specific part of the proposal. The idea of full elimination appears to require future action through general law. And whenever you hear the phrase general law, that means the legislature still has work to do. They would have to create the schedule, the rules, the process, and the details. So the more honest way to explain this is Florida may be creating a pathway toward a much larger reduction and possible eventual elimination of certain homestead property taxes. But the full removal is not automatic on day one. And even then, buyers need to understand what still may remain. School taxes may remain. Special assessments may remain. CDD fees may remain. Bond payments may remain. And HOA fees and insurance are separate costs altogether. That's why the headline is just simply not enough. The real question is not just, will there be a $250,000 tax exemption? The real question is, what part of my tax bill is reduced, what part remains, and what still depends on future legislation? That is the part buyers need to understand. Governor DeSantis has made a strong case for aggressive property tax relief, and many homeowners are frustrated. They feel that local governments have collected significantly more money as the home values have increased. And for many people, especially those on fixed incomes, that concern is real. The cost of homeownership has gone up, insurance has gone up, HOA fees have gone up, CDD fees have gone up, and property taxes are a part of that pressure. So the desire for relief is completely understandable. But there is a difference between the political goal and the actual wording voters may be asked to approve. And that's where buyers really need to pay attention, because the headline is $250,000 exemption. But the real story is who qualifies, when they qualify, which part of the tax bill is reduced, which charges remain, and what is automatically and what is optional, and what still needs future legislation. Those are the questions that matter. So here's my takeaway. If you already own homesteaded property in Florida, this could become a meaningful benefit. If you're thinking about moving to Florida, the timing could matter. If you're buying in a community with the CDD fees or special assessments, you still need to understand the full tax bill. And if you're relying only on the headline, you may miss the most important part. because the $250,000 homestead exemption sounds simple, but the fine print is where the real story lives. Before you buy a home in Florida, especially Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Bradenton, or the surrounding Gulf Coast area, make sure you fully understand the full cost of ownership. That means property taxes, school taxes, CDDs, HOA, insurance, special assessment, and how all those numbers work together. That is why I always tell buyers, do not just look at the purchase price. Look at the lifestyle cost, look at the monthly cost, look at the tax bill, look at the community fees, and understand what you're really buying into. Florida is still one of the most attractive places in the country to live, retire, and relocate. But smart buyers need smart information. So before you move, make sure you understand both the opportunity and the fine print. I'm George Latos with Latos Realty and Design, and if you're thinking about buying, selling, or relocating to Lakewood Ranch or the Sarasota Manatee area, I'd be happy to help you understand the market and the true costs of ownership. Please subscribe to my channel for more honest Florida real estate updates and buyer advice and relocation information. And if this video helped you, share it with someone who's thinking about moving to Florida, because this is the kind of information that could save them real money. Because in Florida, real estate, the headlines get your attention, but the fine print protects your money.